Welcome to the Hell Has an Exit podcast. I'm your host, Brian Alzate. This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 833-999-1877 to speak to a specialist. The show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com. Hey, welcome to Hell Has an Exit. I'm your host, Brian Alzate. On this show, we interview individuals who have survived addiction. I have a good friend of mine, Evan. So I was just telling you, dude, I have a lot of people ask me to be on the show. And a lot of times I'm like, dude, I don't know you. I don't know if you're telling the truth. I don't know if you're high. Not that I'm saying you're lying. Right. But it's just hard to have someone on the show that I don't know. And if I have someone on the show that I don't know, it's like recommended from somebody who I've known for 20 years or 10 years who knows this person. Right. You know, it's pretty incredible that we're like on episode 91 or 92. Pretty much 99% of the show are people that I formerly have known for years, you know? Someone was asking me today, like, who's on Hell Has an Exit this week? I'm like, oh, my buddy Evan. He's like, what's his story? I was like, dude, I saw him in and out for a long time. Like years. So, Decades, yeah. So I remember I had a commitment at a county fund, state-funded place, and I just remember you in there, like, how many times do you think you've been there?
Wow. I was just talking about that place the other day.
Yeah.
10?
10 times.
In and out?
Yeah.
You know, whether it was the detox, whether it was the long-term, whether it was whatever. And then I just stopped going to places like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It just wasn't part of my story anymore. It didn't work. And it's not that it didn't work, it's just that I didn't work anything.
Yeah, a lot of times I've had people say like, you know, why do I need to go to rehab? It didn't work last time. Right. And I was just like, well, it's not about like it didn't work. Yep. I mean, it gives you a fighting chance.
It does.
And some people don't have the luxury to go.
Some people don't even know.
Know.
So there's only 10% of us get to make it into a treatment center setting. Yeah. Something like 10%, which is that other 90% doesn't even know there's a way out. They have no idea that there's a way out, you know?
When I went to detox the first time, I could have went here the whole time. Right. Like, dude, there was so many times I was like struggling out on the street trying to make it work, sick at my house. I could have just walked in here, got subs, got detoxed, got some food, been able to get a reprieve.
Yeah. I was always like, I know the sub maintenance. I'm going to do that at home. I got this.
I'll just taper off on my own.
Yeah. And then I started using, you know, Suboxone addictively. You know, I use that I always tell the story about cutting my Suboxone strips like an alcoholic. You know what I mean? They all had to be the same size. They had to be the same shape. They had to be the same. Really? Oh yeah. Oh my God. I mean, when you're talking about puddle shooting junkies, that's me, man. Like to the every nth degree. And I thought there was no problem with that.
Because we have a facility in California. A lot of the doctors are really pro sub maintenance. And I'm not trying to like bash sub maintenance. I think there's like a purpose for it. I just don't believe in the thought process of like, some people can't get clean. Yeah. And the best thing for them is to be on this medication that's highly addictive for the rest of their lives. Like, who would get clean if it's like, hey, you want to take this drug or you want to get clean? So when you give someone an out, it's, of course you're not going to get clean. Yeah. And this doctor was like, well, Suboxone lowers people's relapse rate 50%. And I was like, but they're high. Right. Because it's not like it doesn't stop you from relapsing. And two, it's like the reason why I'm an addict is because I can't manage medication.
Correct.
I abuse medication, you know what I mean? Right. If I was on subs, it would be a matter of time before I'm selling it.
Yeah. And I am not here to judge anybody's cleanliness. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was that guy that was like, you know, Suboxone is not the way, you know, you're not sober if you're doing that. You know what I mean? You're not clean if you're doing that. But for me, and all I can speak on is my experience, I never knew how to do anything effectively, right? So if you gave me something that was like, this is an easy way out, I was staying on it for years and years and years and years and years. You know what I mean? So that just never, in my experience, nothing like that ever worked for me, you know?
And it's scary now because of fentanyl. So like sometimes I deal with parents who are like, dude, I would love it if he got clean. Yeah. But I'm so scared that he's going to die. Yeah. So at least on subs, I know he's okay. Yeah. The thing is that being on subs, it's like a ticking time bomb too.
Yeah. For me, it couldn't be a lifestyle thing. It had to be a means to an end. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it had to be a
Suboxone at like a short taper is great and whatever. But when it's really prescribed, I think the worst part about it is people believing that they can't get clean.
Right.
I think that's what makes me so sad.
Sure.
It's not that, I want to sit on my high horse and be like, everyone needs to do what I do.
Right.
I've been on Suboxone and I've been clean.
Yep.
And it's not the same.
Correct.
Food doesn't taste the same.
Yeah.
Like it's literally like when you're on subs, like you can get a job and you can eat food and you can, you'll take a healthy shit, you know, like you could just look normal.
Yep.
But when you get off of it, you're just like, wow.
And it was me because really like codependency is the root of my issues, right? Drug use and alcohol use is like, to me, the most sincere form of codependency. I let the substance, I let the place, I let the people dictate who I am and not the other way around, So if I was still, in my experience, if I was still doing the Suboxone, I'm just still acting codependently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need that thing to help me go through whatever I have to during the day,
I always tell, you're not going to eat pizza, but we're going to give you pizza rolls. You know what I mean? It's like, like what are we really doing? And you know what? People tell me that are addicts, they'll be like, well, you're addicted to cigarettes and caffeine. And I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect my life.
Right. And even, like me going on this spiritual journey has forced me to look at everything under the microscope of recovery, right? Always, I have to view everything through the prism of recovery. So sometimes I'll have to check out my pre-workout intake. Sometimes I'll have to check out what kind of pre-workout I'm using. Sometimes I have to check out what I need the pre-workout for. Like that, my spiritual journey has forced me to look at everything like that.
Yeah, and it's like food and whatever, and it's like all sorts overeating. Oh, and then it's overworking out. So it's like whatever. But like to me, like I believe that we have things that we overdo. Yeah. But it's not like, to me, an addiction is something that messes with like your housing, your finances, your commitments. So if I'm saying I'm going to be at work and I'm not going to work.
Right.
If I say that I'm going to be at your wedding and I'm not showing up to your wedding.
Right.
And then that's intertwined with intimacy and relationships with family and stuff like that. So if something's messing up those 4 things or 3 of those 4 things, that's an addiction. If I pick up golf and I'm golfing a lot, am I addicted to golf?
Right.
Or am I just golfing a lot?
Right.
Now, if I'm lying to my boss about fucking being at work and I'm golfing, that's a problem.
Or lying to my wife or lying to my kids, or I can't pick up my kids because I'm golfing that day. Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand and that took a lot for me too, because I was up on my high horse about sobriety. You know what I mean? Well, you need to be, and you need... Then
we all do.
And then I had a sponsor that was like the mind ninja, man. He's got 39 years. Wow. And he told me, early on in recovery, I had to remove the word you from my vocabulary, right? I was no longer allowed to say the word you because I barely know how to live my life. Once I start saying the word you, I start talking at you instead of to you. And nobody likes to be talked at.
I used to do it in my step work. Even in my step work, I'd be saying the word you.
Yeah.
And my sponsor would be like, dude, what are you doing, you weirdo?
Who is this person?
Like, what? Like, this is your step work. I don't hear about like you fucking talking about other people or what other people need to do. He was like, dude, me and I. Yep. That's it.
Yep. It's a forcing myself to look in the mirror word. When I say I and my experience, it forces me to look in the mirror. And it changes the whole train of thought even.
Even the feeling of like when you talk to someone who's saying you words and where are you from?
I'm from South Florida, man. I'm a native, just like you. I was born in Margate, and then we moved to Homestead, and then Hurricane Andrew hit, and that was like really my first traumatic experience.
Hurricane Andrew.
Hurricane Andrew. We lived in Homestead.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So we were.
Was that 95?
92.
92. Wow.
92. And we were so in the eye of Hurricane Andrew that when the eye went over, we got to go out and look. So it was complete devastation. It was not only complete devastation of our house, but of my life, like a total upheaval of life, I was always really good at being the codependent, so I was more worried about how everybody else was instead of how it affected me, That's why I fully cemented in the thought process that I am born with this thing. You know what I mean? I can look at things in my life in my childhood where I was being manipulative or where I was being a scammer or where I was being a schemer or a liar, right? And that was really the first one of it, like going over my step work and realizing like, hey, I never dealt with that. I never dealt with that trauma, just the sudden upheaval of life. Everything I know is gone. And the only thing I can remember thinking about was, how are my parents? How is my sister? How is everything else? And not because I'm a good guy, just because I didn't want to feel whatever was going on at that time. Yeah. We moved from Homestead to Tampa, and then we came to Broward. And that's where I've been since like 93, I lived in Cooper City pretty much my whole life. I went to Pioneer Middle School. I went to Cooper City High School. Straight A student up through 5th grade, man. School was of the utmost importance. Parents got divorced when I was like 10. And again, I can remember the codependent. Like I am fully convinced that codependency will take me back to living a life that I don't want to live faster than the drugs and alcohol will, you know? So I can remember being like, oh, this is good for them. They're fighting all the time. You know what I mean? This is good for them. Not really dealing with it. Not really dealing with the issues. And then 6th grade hit and I started making every bad decision that I possibly could have, you know, whether it was who I was hanging out with, whether it was what I was placing importance on. And really 6th grade, the last part of 6th grade is the first time I tried narcotics. And it was like that aha moment, you know, that was the aha moment, right? Like I had found where I thought I belonged, you know what I mean? And then it's really on from there, man. Like, middle school was a whirlwind. You know, my story's like everybody else. In high school, I couldn't go to regular high school. I had to go to a program. You know what I mean? I was in my first treatment center at 14. It's like, you know, I always say this, like everybody knows how to use and drink. You know, I knew how to use and drink really, really, really extremely well. You know, I knew how to hustle extremely well. I knew how to manipulate extremely well. And what I didn't know is how to get clean and sober, you know? And I can remember you at the 10, you know? I mean, early on, I was probably like 16, being at the 10, sitting in the back, raising my hands, crying because I couldn't get into Bark Detox, right? You know, and I can remember these things as little, and that's what God does for me, right? Like God has a way of tapping me on the shoulder first and being like, listen, this life isn't for you anymore. Then he has a way of hitting me in the back of the head.
Did you believe in God throughout your youth?
No way. If you would have told me that God was the answer to all of my problems, I was telling, because I was good with the first step and the 12th step. You know what I mean? Like I was good with all that. I was good with telling you that I think I have a problem, right?
And then telling you how to fix yours.
And then telling you how to fix yours, you know, and usually looking for the weakest girl in the room, you know, to tell her how to fix her problem, you know?
Show her the ropes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But really like when I got locked up the last time, because I stopped going to institutions, you know what I mean? I wasn't voluntarily going to institutions anymore. I just wasn't doing it. You know, then I had started getting arrested and had started going in and out of jail and start on the probation, you know, and all that was just, you know, cyclical for me. I was stuck inside of that cycle. I would go back to my judge and be like, can I get on drug offender probation? And he would be like, you don't know how to do probation. You don't pay, you don't go, you don't report. I'm like the gingerbread man on probation. Like you literally have to come catch me, you know? And that's what it was. But the last time I got locked up and I can remember, like I was living at my sister's house at the time, smoking blues in the bathroom, drinking myself to sleep every night with her kids in the house, and she's in recovery, you know what I mean? It's just like a microcosm of how I don't care about what anything else is going on, right? It's all about me and the getting and using more.
Self-centeredness.
You know? Self-centeredness, the root of all of our troubles, right? So I can remember I got a letter from her while I was locked up saying, you can't come back to my house. This is what I have to do for me and my family, right? And the first thought in my mind wasn't, yeah, she really needs to take care of herself. The first thought in my mind was, how dare she? She knows that I'm in this situation where I'm not taking anybody else's feelings into consideration.
Yeah, they turn their backs on me.
Yeah. How could you do that? Look at the place that I'm at, right? So that was one day. The next day I got sentenced to a year. And that very next day I was in my cell and I said the word, okay. I didn't know what it meant at the time, right? Like I didn't know where it was from. I didn't know what it meant, but it was like a little piece of me dying, right? A good piece that needed to die, right? It was like a diseased piece of me that was falling off, right? And just saying that word okay was me saying, I don't know how to live my life. Something, somewhere, somebody take over for me, right? And literally after that, like mini third step, you know, stuff started to change. Like my attitude and outlook started to change. Everything has always remained the same, which is why I hate talking about changing people, places, and things, because I think it's the biggest lie that we're told in recovery. I can't change any person. I can't change any place. I can't change anything. But when I change my perception, they all changed by themselves. You know what I mean? The people I was attracted to, I was no longer attracted to. The places I wanted to hang out in, I no longer wanted to hang out in Shanks. You know what I mean? Like I no longer wanted to hang out there. The places that I wanted to go to, I no longer wanted to go to. You know, all of my wants and needs had changed.
Yeah, there's this book that I've read about, you know, how people change their habits. A lot of times people are like, well, I want to change this outward thing. So instead of saying like, oh, I don't want to eat pizza, I'm not eating pizza anymore. they focus on like your brain can't do like a no.
Right.
Your brain doesn't think in negative terms.
Right.
So instead of saying, I'm not going to eat pizza anymore, you have to say like, well, okay, what are you going to do instead?
Right.
Well, I'm going to eat, more salads.
Right.
And then that will change your desire for what you kind of want in life. And it's like the same thing in the program.
Especially for people like us, right? We don't want to be told. I don't want to be told what I can't do.
Yeah.
Don't tell me no because I'm going to show you a yes.
And then you know what you do? As soon as someone says you can have it, you go and have it.
Yep.
But when you start to have that positive reinforcement, when you hang out with people in recovery, I don't want to hang out with people that are doing drugs.
Right.
Instead of saying, my parents be like, don't hang out with your druggy friends.
Right.
Well, I don't have anyone else to hang out with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, instead of saying, don't hang out with your fucked up friends, which you feel like you're turning your back on them,
right.
Well, why don't you just hang out with people in recovery?
Right.
Why don't you go hang out with them? And then you kind of want to, and you like to, and it feels good.
And I thought I was resigned to a life that was boring and dull, like the literature says, right? And it's so funny because
we're selling books at the airport.
I look back and think, what was fun? It's the innate ability of my disease to make things that are totally disgusting and deplorable and twist them around to think that they're fun, or I'm missing out on something, or there's something out there that I need that's not inside these rooms or whatever this is, right? Because I would look up how, 12-step fellowships, I would look up percentages of people that were actually high.
Wow.
I would try to do this, to discredit whatever that was. And it's really like, for me, it's been about, and recovery has been about the journey of self-worth, When I know my self-worth, I don't need anything else to dictate that self-worth, right? Like I'm holding the door. One of the biggest things that I keep with me all the time is like, am I holding the door because it's the right thing to do? Or am I holding the door because I need you to say thank you? And that's a microcosm of my life as a man and person of integrity.
And it's like no one knows but you, because they look exactly the same.
Yep.
And you know what? You'll meet people in the program that are doing the same thing that other people are doing, and you don't know their intention. You don't know, how low their self-esteem is or why they're doing certain things.
Anybody can be an all-star in a 1-hour meeting, right? Anybody can be an all-star, right? For me, it's like the rest 23. Like, what am I doing for the rest 23 hours of the day?
When no one's around.
When no one's around, when no one's looking, right? I could say all this good stuff here on this podcast, go home and beat my wife, or be a terrible father, or not be there, or not love them, or not nurture them, and give them the stuff that they need. Like, that is living a life beyond my wildest dreams. That's the living life on life's terms. It's not like inside the meetings for me. Like meeting makers make it to meetings, bro. That's where they make it to.
That's it, yeah.
If I don't learn anything and then apply that stuff in my life, nothing changes for me. And that's like the life that I lived, Again, like being in my first treatment center at 14, I should have thought, something's not right. Something's not right inside of me. Normal people don't come to treatment centers. They just don't. My parents never went to a treatment center, I thought everybody did that, I thought everybody, instead of just smoking weed, put a little cocaine on top of the weed. You know what I mean? Like, no, not everybody does that.
Yeah, people don't complete probation ever.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a trap. You know what I mean? Probation is a trap. And whatever you want to say about that it is or not, there's people that do it. Yeah. There's people that complete probation.
Well, yeah, when you're clean, I have plenty of friends who just did it.
I know. I just didn't do it. My mom always said that I never thought you would get clean and sober because you would never humble yourself. And there's so much truth to that, because I still thought I'm not that bad. You know what I mean? I always had like a proverbial shovel in my back pocket to dig that bottom deeper. Like homelessness, whatever. That's not that big of a deal. Or like the flip side to it, I'm sleeping on my sister's couch and have the notion that I'm not homeless. Yeah. There's always a silver lining to my addiction. You know what I mean?
There's times where we do like a pre-assessment on a client and we'll be like, you have any housing problems? They're like, no. Like, where do you live? They're like, oh, well, I live at this person's house or whatever. When's the last time you had an address? I've never had an address, but when's the last time you rented a place? I have never rented a place. So you have housing problems.
Let's go back to the housing problems part.
And a lot of times you don't really think of yourself as that. It took me a long time to even think that I was like addicted, that I was like really smoking crack. Because I was like, of course, like, I smoke crack, but I'm not like a crackhead.
Right.
I'm not smoking it every single day.
Right.
I just like binge on the weekends every once in a while, And
like to thy known self be true stuff, right? Like once I actually said that outwardly to somebody, like I am a crackhead. Yeah. Like I am a puddle shooting junkie, right? Like I will steal your wallet and help you look for it. That is the person who I am, right? Like it's not a knock knock on me as a person. That's who chemically I am. Like once I started really getting into this stuff and getting into recovery and knowing that the only way out was to be completely honest, and not honest with you, not honest with my sponsor, not honest with my wife, but when I look in that mirror and I'm doing that self-honesty stuff, right? Like where I can be in life, where I cannot be in life, you know? I knew that there were certain things that I had to do in early recovery, and it was like, I didn't have a job, you know, like when I got out of jail, the last time when I got out of jail, and like when I said that little okay in my cell, you know, I got on a work unit and we were like never inside the jail, you know what I mean? Like we got to go out, we were smoking cigarettes, you know what I mean? Like all this good stuff started to happen. So when I got out of jail and I went to halfway, and I remember somebody telling me that the first day out of any setting, whether it's treatment, whether it's jail, whether it's prison, whether it's hospital, go to your meeting, like the first second that you get out. So I literally dropped my stuff in the halfway house and went to a meeting. And literally from that first meeting.
So because I always find it interesting, like you knew that the 12-step program worked.
Oh yeah.
So you like knew the whole time the 12-step program worked.
Yeah. I had seen it in you. Yeah. I had seen it in Carl. Yeah. I had seen it in Andre.
So many people.
I had seen it in Stevie B. I had seen it in all these people. I saw it in my sister. You know what I mean? Like I saw that it worked for them. There was just some, and again, like the self-worth thing. I didn't think I was worth it, you know? It's not that it couldn't work for me. It was just that I didn't see any worth in me. And once I had that glimmer of hope and that glimmer of worth and that glimmer of when your parents start talking to you again, when my mom's putting money on my books every week, she's coming to see me every week, to where people still care. There is some hope for you. And like you asked me about God, it's the one thing that I had such difficulty with in the beginning. I didn't know how this thing was going to help me not use anymore.
Yeah, because with any other disease, they're never like, well, you have cancer, I'd really suggest you getting a relationship with God. I don't know, with the 12-step program, to me, I never really saw it that way. I saw it as like, you know, someone saying like, you know, with boxing, you know, you have to have a spiritual fitness. With running, like any like physical thing that you're going to do, it's really not how strong and tough you are physically.
No.
You got to have some mental toughness.
There's a war.
And spiritual toughness.
There is a war going on every day when I wake up, still to this day. Every day I wake up with untreated alcoholism. So I get to choose every day that I wake up what's going to win. It's like when a mountain range is formed, right? Two tectonic plates are violently moving over one another, and one of them wins, right? One of them wins and forms a mountain range. So that's like my old life and my new life. Because my thought processes are always going to be addictive and alcoholic in nature. The first thought process is always going to be, where can you lie? Where can you manipulate? Where can you scheme? Still to this day. Fortunately, I've put a bunch of tools in the toolbox and coping mechanisms to deal with that. So every day I have a battle about if my spiritual fitness is going to win or not. All this stuff, like I never gave it a chance in the program. The only thing I wanted to hear, we're talking about speaker tapes, right? The only thing that I wanted to hear in speakers was war stories, because it's the only thing I could relate to. I couldn't relate to the spirituality part. I couldn't relate to the God stuff. I didn't know how, again.
Oh, when a woman would share, but oh, great, here we go. Talking about, you know, meditation and love and whatever.
Right. Don't get out of here. I don't want to hear none of that, right? I don't think God loves me. I don't have any love. I used to talk different and act different and sound different. You know what I mean? I was a little rougher around the edges. It's funny that you talk to that, coming to that facility. I remember that day. I get goosebumps thinking about that day. I remember you coming in. I remember Carl coming in, and I can remember you guys sharing the message. And I can remember, like, when it talks about in the literature that our alcoholic life seems the only normal one. I can just remember coming up to you like, hey, you know, like not embarrassed at all, right? Not groveling, not coming to you and being like, I need you to tell me how you did this. You know what I mean? Just wanting to say hi like I knew you type of deal. You know what I mean? To make myself feel important or whatever, you know? But some little piece of me, when you left there, I was like, man, these dudes are doing it.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I still go to that facility. I was just there on last week or this week on Monday. There's like so many people who were like, man, we just thought like eventually you would just get high, you know? There's people that tell me that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had multiple people be like, you know, I remember when I first met you, I was like, you know, this kid's young and he's really positive, but like, how long is he really going to do this shit for, you know? And sometimes I'm like, what do I say to that? Like, you've been expecting me to get high this whole time? Smiling in my face?
Right.
So it's like, for me, it's like, you know, consistency wins.
Every time.
every time.
And in every aspect, you know what I mean? Consistency in every single aspect.
For sure.
So and that's a big deal for me about being
business, friendships, whatever, you know.
Everything. And I'm a father, a stepfather, and a husband. So these three things I take very seriously in my life. If any of those things falters, those people notice, man.
Yeah.
My kids notice when I am restless, irritable, discontent. My wife notices. And it usually has nothing to do with them, but it's usually taken out on them because they're the closest people there, you know?
And oftentimes we treat our people we love the most or know us the most the worst because we can.
That was the thing that I wanted to change the most, right? As soon as I got a foothold in this recovery thing, I wanted to live a life of integrity. I wanted to stop talking shit because I was so good at that, man. I looked my mom directly in her face when I was using and said, "Why do you care? I'm just doing this to myself." The train of selfish thinking, you know what I mean? How I can look at the person who birthed me, who raised me, and say, "Why do you care that I'm killing myself?"
Yeah,
you know
just
what I mean?
Leave me alone.
Just leave me alone.
What's wrong with you people?
I'm good. I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like, just leave me alone. And they'd be like, "You're not fine. Look at your eyes in the mirror. Like, nothing is fine." But I was okay with each bottom, right? Like, I had this weird semblance of being okay with each and every bottom. Oh, my lights were off for 2 months? That's totally fine with me. I don't care. I had a license that was revoked for years and years and years and years and years. Everywhere I went, I did the right turn shuffle. I was right turning everywhere to get home. I had no license. My tags were expired 2 years. I never had insurance, never had any of this stuff. Like, I bring a meeting into a treatment center, and I'm always like, I don't know how you guys even had the wherewithal to get insurance to come to a place like that. Like, I don't know how that happens. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like a sophisticated thing.
Yeah. Just the simple phone call of inquiring about the insurance. Like, that is not my life. In active addiction, that is not my life at all. I don't care about that. There is no thinking about that. The only reason I have a job is that I can steal from that job. I mean, that was like literally I would get these stupid like bar jobs or these stupid restaurant jobs because I could steal from them. Going back to when I first, went to my first meeting when I got out of jail, and we're talking about the God thing, and I can't stress the importance of God's importance in my life enough, man. I really can't. And it changed for me like slowly over time because we all have, in my experience, we all have this connotation of this higher power, right? That is from our old life. Number one reason that pushes the people away from God is calamity. Bad shit happens, I blame God for it. It's my own doing. Doing step work proves it to me that this is all my own doing, And it forces me to look in the mirror. It forces me to say, you know what? It's not that person's problem that I chose to stay in a toxic relationship. Even though that person's no good, even though that person wasn't necessarily for me, I saw the signs of toxicity and chose to stay in that.
And volunteered and signed up and signed on the dotted line.
I'll sign my life away for that. Simply because you needed me. You were close to me, or something about you made me feel a certain way.
Or I think you're so fucked up that I get a lot of value from telling you how much better I am than you and fixing you and caring for you.
I mean, my ex-wife was my running partner. We did the running together. So I needed her, right? Things that were like not necessarily character defects, things that were totally glaring character defects inside, for me, helped me live on the street. For me, helped me get and use more. For me, helped me get exactly what I needed. Because the whole mission for an opiate addict like me is just to stay well, is to not be sick. My whole life was driven on not being sick. Oh my God, I have to go to work today to
not even high.
Never.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I got, maybe the first time. And once I found that the first time, because we were in South Florida during the pill mill stuff. So like we were in the epicenter of it, And the first time I did it, I can remember itching my nose off and remembering the next morning being like, this is what I want to do. This is it. This is the feeling that I want. And I chased that for 15 years. Through everything, through getting fired, through getting arrested, through getting this, it was paramount importance in my life. Going back to the God thing, like it had to be God for me when I started to get into 12-step fellowships, because it told me that God was everything. It told me that I suffered from a spiritual malady. Not that I didn't have spirituality, not that my spirituality was lacking. It said the word malady, right? So I looked that up and it's like a sickness. It's a devoid. It's a black hole of spirituality. And like my first year, man, I don't know if you can relate, but the first year is like a whirlwind. It's you're going to meetings all the time. You're like living in halfway. You got
your emotions are, you're crying on like a Publix commercial. You know, you're getting into a fist fight.
In the same hour. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't play that Sarah McLachlan ASPCA commercial because I will straight turn it off, you know? But yeah, everything's like such a whirlwind and you're hearing stuff, but you're not really like, you know, you're just kind of holding on. And then
you don't know who's safe.
Yep.
You don't know who's like, you know, in the program, who is someone who's like actually a good person.
Yep.
You kind of all blends in together. Yep. And not to say that there's like such horrible people in the program, but there are people in the program that aren't necessarily people I would align with and not really doing the right thing or whatever. But when you're new, you don't really know. You're like, oh, this guy speaks all the time, or you see them all over the place and they're so nice or whatever. It's so hard to deal with someone upsetting an expectation when you first get clean and, you know, your family not believing that you're clean and, you know, you're living with your parents or you're living in a halfway house and people are stealing your food or you're getting bed bugs, you know, and it's just like, when my first year clean, I was like, I'm clean, but it doesn't look like I'm clean. You know, like I'm still putting $5 in a gas tank. I'm still like pissing in a cup. Still depressed. Still have no friends. And I'm like, when's it gonna work?
Yeah. And really like being incarcerated for a long period of time changed my thinking. So it's I got to piss in a cup. For me, it was like I got to piss in a cup. I got to sleep on the couch. I got to take a bus. I got to go to meetings. I was not in handcuffs every single day. I did not hear a door slamming behind me. So when everybody else, like for me, and this is just, you know, my experience.
You got grateful.
I got grateful, man. I got hit with a grateful stick as soon as I got out. And I was like, wow, the sky is so blue right now. The grass is so green. And it wasn't green on the other side. It was green underneath my feet. And that's when I started to realize maybe something is out there saying that your experience is not over with. I always say God has a crazy way of turning my mess into my message, right? And it's evident doing stuff like this. Like 15 years ago, I never would have thought I would be doing stuff like this. 15 years ago, I never thought I would have been carrying a message or people calling me every day from treatment centers. People calling me to say, hey, what's your experience in this? Like, I never wanted to do that because I was so selfish. Like, life in recovery forces me to be selfless. And I continue to do it, even though sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes I'm like, man, I got 8 years. I don't want to be going to that. I'm tired. I don't want to be going to that meeting tonight. And God has a way of pushing me toward that meeting, right? I'm up early every single day. I'm a 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning guy because I usually have to be to work at that. And I work underground and it's hot and everything in my diseased mind was like, you are hot and tired. You do not have to go to that meeting tonight. The way that the treatment center game has changed. Like 8 years ago when I used to do this meeting, they were like, everybody down here right now, we're having a meeting.
Now they're like, if you want to go.
If it doesn't affect your sensibilities, you know what I mean? You don't have to come down here. But I came on Thursday night and there was like 30 people there, man. It felt like the old times. God has a funny way of doing that. Like when I don't want to do something, he shows me that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, so
you know?
I always tell people like, too, that I think the key to staying clean is having a commitment and doing things that you don't want to do in the moment. So when you commit to something, you sign on the dotted line, I'm going to do this every third Thursday. Not I'm going to do this when I feel like it.
Right.
I'm not going to do this when it's not raining. It's, hey, every Thursday, I'm coming to do this. When Thursday comes and I don't want to go, I committed to going. So I get used to doing things that I don't want to do. And everything in my life that's good has came from doing something I didn't want to do.
100%.
Not in a way of like active addiction, like I don't want to use and I'm using, but in a way of like, this is inconvenient. It's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be difficult. And there was times where I had my H&I commitment and I'd be like, dude, I don't want to fucking go here. And sometimes no one would even listen. I would just feel like I'm wasting my time. And I'll never forget, I think I had like 18 months clean. And I think after a year clean, I started to question if I wanted to go to meetings. I was like, should I still go? Like, you know, I don't know. And I'll never forget, man. I remember I was at the 10 o'clock and I was pulled up late and I pulled in with my head down. And I'll never forget, this car of kids pulled in and they hopped out the car and they were like, yo, you're the guy from IRT. And I was like, what's up? They're like, bro, you told us this was your home group. You killed it when you came in and brought those meetings, man. We used to tell everyone about you. Like we were hoping to see you tonight and we saw you tonight. Now I have to be like, of course, that guy. So I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And
I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to be here. You know, it was like, you know, God saying like, dude, just keep doing what I'm telling you to do.
This is your area. This is your area of ministry.
And it feels like purpose.
It's your area of ministry.
My whole life, I never had purpose. I just did things because I fucking wanted to do them and I was going to get something out of it. But it allowed me to live a life that was not about what I could get out of it, more what I could put into it.
And it never works when I go into a situation thinking what I can get out of it.
Yeah.
It never works.
Yeah.
It never
When I go
works.
to a job, I'm never like, what are you going to do for me? I'm always like, this is what I can do.
Right.
This is what I can bring. This is what I bring to the table.
Right. And the whole purpose of that conversation changes when I use language like that. When I stop thinking what I can take, my whole life was take, you know? And now the whole life in recovery, it just flips itself on its head. It's what can I give to the situation? What can I add to the stream of consciousness? That's what it says.
Well, that's the only thing I can control anyways. So it's like, you know, I can't really control other way. I hope that if I prove my value that you guys are going to pay me what I think I'm worth. But at the same time, I need to communicate that. I was on the phone with my sponsee the other day and he was like, dude, my job is really taking advantage of me. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, well, I said if they paid me more money to do 2 jobs, like they don't have to pay somebody else. And I was like, okay, cool. What do they pay you? And he told me what they pay him. And I was like, well, when you got your paycheck, was it a surprise? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, or did you agree to that? And now it's a year later and now you want more money.
Now you're mad.
I was like, bro, you agreed to this.
Right.
Have you spoken to them about this? No. Have you talked to anyone about this?
Right.
Do they know that you're unhappy? How long have you been unhappy for? All year?
Yeah.
Were you happy the first day and then you told someone else and someone said, oh, hey, you're getting ripped off?
Yep.
And then you just never said nothing about it?
And then you build a resentment based on somebody else's perception of
yeah,
the thing,
because somebody fucking said something about, oh, wow, whatever.
Yeah. And then think about that life, living that life with resentment. It literally is drinking poison and hoping that person dies from it, you know? And all based on something that you, like you said, something that I already agreed to.
Yeah.
I have already agreed to this thing. And now I'm going to be mad because I said yes to the thing that you said.
Yeah, because I felt like you manipulated me in the moment.
And how many things am I missing? How many things am I missing when I am living in a life of resentment? You know what I mean? How many blessings am I missing? The blessing is that I had a job. And when I was in active addiction, I was not employable. Nothing about me said employable. None of my actions, none of my thinking, none of my behavior said I was employable. So that's why I would always blame people when I got fired for stealing from the register. You know what I mean? Like wondering why I couldn't keep a job. Wondering why I couldn't keep a relationship. Had nothing to do with the other people. It was everything about me.
Well, let me ask you something. Why do you think addicts need God? Like why?
I think there's a couple things. It's a couple-fold question, right? I think the number one reason is to show that I'm not God.
Yeah.
Because I lived a life of thinking that I was God. Every opiate addict wakes up in the morning and says, I got to make shit happen today.
Not just that. It's like every day in the paper, these people are dying from a drug that I'm doing. And I really think that's not going to be me.
Yeah. I used to have people tell me, and this is when the fentanyl started to come in, because thank God I got sober before the fentanyl really started to come in, that they would use and have 911 already programmed on their phone. Like, what kind of life are we living right now?
Yeah.
What kind of life are we living? So the number one reason for me was to show that I am not God, right? The number two reason, I think, is that I am not in control. To show me that I am not in control and to show me that when I do take control, how things end up and what my life looks like, right? I always said that my will is like the Bluebird bus. The Bluebird bus is the bus that takes you from jail to court and court to jail and back, right? That is what my will is. Every time I act out in self-will, I'm back on the Bluebird bus, shackled to some dude I don't know with graffiti all on the top of the ceiling. Always.
And it's going to one of those places.
Oh my God, for sure. And that's where my using takes me to. Again, when I was at the treatment center, because these treatment centers are nice now, man. Like it is not when I first tried to get clean. Like they're nice. They got the pool. I'm always like, man, you guys got this pool over here. You get to wear your own clothes. This is a blessing. Like this is such a blessing that I get to hear the language of recovery and be somewhat comfortable at the same time.
Yeah, treatment centers back in the day was like, hey, you got to cut this grass and
let's go.
Whatever.
Let's
like
go.
A boot camp.
Here's a chainsaw. Let's go. You know what I mean? And it was 9 months. All of them were 9 months or more. And really what like God has morphed into like the last thing for me is like a best friend. To know that even like I was in the shower before I came here and my wife's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm annoyed. Everything's annoying right now. Everything is crazy right now. And I'm laughing as soon as I get in the shower. I'm like, did you hear me laughing in there? And she's like, no. I said, this is a spiritual attack. So what it does for me, what God in my life does for me, is it changes the perception of every event that happens in my life. It's no longer, I had to pay $2,500 to get my car out of here. It's no longer that I got COVID. It's no longer that I got this. It is that there is something that's welling up inside of what we're doing right now that has a spirituality and some message and some semblance of hope to it, that something else is trying to steal that joy. Something else is trying to pull me back. Something else is trying to tell me it's not worth it. Somebody else is trying to have me here in a state of resentment, like we were talking about,
Yeah, and it's like when things happen like that, it's like, what is that negative energy that is making me think, fuck, now I got to get my car fixed, as opposed to being like, wow, thank God no one died.
Or I have the means.
Yeah, or I have the means. They're like, dude, I could just pay it. What I always tell people is like, when you're in traffic, are you mad that there's traffic or are you grateful that you're not in the accident? And it's like one little switch.
Yep. Stop thinking what God is doing to me and really realizing what God is doing for me. Because every treatment center, every jail stay, every overdose, every homelessness, every thought of putting a gun in my mouth, every moment of despair was leading me to this moment right here and now, right? To carry a message to those who still suffer. And I have to carry that with me all the time. Like what you're talking about, like with the gratitude, like I was beat into a state of submission as far as gratitude is concerned. It wasn't that I had to ride the bus for the first 6 months in the halfway house to work. It was like, dude, I think I got drug tested like 6 times that first week because they were like, there's no way you're this happy sleeping on the couch, riding a bus at 4 a.m. to work every day. And I was just so grateful, dude. Like I was so grateful to not be in bondage anymore. I was so grateful to not wake up every morning and want to stick a gun in my mouth. Being upset that I woke up that morning. Like, I don't know if you can relate to that, but it was like, I didn't want to wake up the next morning. I was doing all this stuff to actively not wake up in the morning.
I used to be such a dark person. I used to hope that I overdosed and then my family would find me. Oof. Like, how do you feel now? Like, a part of me was so angry at my family that, like, I wanted to burden them forever. Like haunt them as a ghost. You know what I mean? Like, I was okay with being like, I'm going to ruin the whole family and just kill myself.
Right. And this is the last memory that they have of me. You know what I mean?
Like, I don't want to kill myself far away. I want you guys to see it.
Right.
Like, that's how sick and dark I was. Yeah. And when I think about it, it's like, dude, I was 17 years old.
Right.
Like, most kids are like trying to like get their first kiss at prom or some shit. You know what I mean?
Going to college.
Yeah, we're going to college, thinking about all this stuff. And it's like, man, I thought about suicide so much that now that I'm an adult, it makes me sad. Yeah. Because I'm like, what happened to me that was so bad at that age?
Yeah. And it really, like, it has to be talked about. You know what I mean? I have to say that out loud. I wanted to wake up and stick a gun in my mouth every single day. And realizing that, like, my sister gave me my 1-year medallion. Like, what an experience. You know what I mean? Cool. And I think she had like 5 years sober at the time. And she can remember being like, I wished that we all prayed that Evan would just die so that he would stop hurting like that. You know, you're biologically closest to your siblings. When somebody gets up there in front of a room full of men, because I picked up at my halfway house meeting, you know, and she's crying and all my brothers are crying, and you know what I mean? Like, what an experience that is to actually hear something like that and have it affect you. Because you can feel suicidal all you want, but when somebody else says that, you know what I mean? Like, maybe if you died, it'd just be easier on everybody. It was crazy, man. And
I'm sure that as a family member, you have your own type of guilt and shame for having thoughts like that, you know? Because I'm sure my dad must have been like, dude, fucking get the fuck out of here, you know?
Right.
Why don't you just overdose and die?
Right.
And it sounds crazy, but like, you know, we bring the worst out of everybody when we're using.
And you know, my mom will always say to this day, every time that phone rang, Every time the phone rang, I sometimes I couldn't even answer it. Every time the phone rang, I was sure that they were calling that Evan was dead. You know what I mean? Or every time the phone rang, I was sure that you were in some kind of trouble. And like what you were saying, we expectations. Going back to the expectations, like it's funny when people talk about expectations because I remember mine. And that word was removed from my vocabulary in early recovery too. Because expectations are things that are based on external sources. And I got no control over that, like you were saying.
And they're mostly unspoken about. It's not an agreement.
Usually.
It's like, oh, I expected you to do this. Did we talk about this?
Did we even say this?
Did you say that?
So my wife talks about this, and she's fantastic in this. She says, I can't have expectations anymore, but I can have standards for my life, right? Standards are not expectations, but it's like a laundry list of things that you have to meet for you to be in my life right now. Because every single second that I have is precious, right? My time is more valuable than anything nowadays. So I can't have those expectations, but I can have those standards. And if you don't meet those standards, and like you said, everything has to be talked about. Like my sponsees will tell me, well, they're telling me that I can't have sex for a year. Well, that's not really the thing. But if I go to somebody in a relationship, like I'm supposedly in a relationship with someone, and I say all my truth, right? I clean my side of the street and say, I'm only in this relationship for sex. I don't really want you for anything else. And they say, okay, that's different. But if I don't say that, right? If I don't say my expectation, not my expectations, my standards for the relationship, and usually it's not. Like you said, it's not talked about.
And at the same time, I wish we were robots, but like, you know, people used to say like two people lay down, one gets up with feelings.
Yeah.
I had like a year clean. This girl was all mad at me because she thought we were going to start dating or something. And I call my sponsor and be like, yo, this bitch is crazy, da da da. I told her I didn't want a relationship. And he was like, you think she heard that?
Right.
Did you think she heard that?
Because my actions.
And here's the thing. I knew she didn't hear it. I just was on my high horse. Like, well, I said I didn't want nothing.
Right.
But I knew from like the googly eyes and like, you know, all the text message, I knew she wanted a relationship. And here I was thinking that my side of the street was clean because I clearly said I didn't. And the reality is that there are some things that go beyond what we say. And we just have to say, you know what, even though she's saying this, I know she doesn't mean it. Just as if a guy was saying, yo, baby, I want to be your fucking man. And you just know that he's just trying to sleep with you. Even though he's saying the right thing, sometimes you have to go beyond what people are saying and go with like what you really know to be true and your gut instinct and make a decision based off that.
And that's where like my discernment comes into play too. Who am I seeking counsel in has become like such an important part of my life right now. Like you were saying, I don't hang around with any people out there anymore. I just don't. All my counsel,
it's like the energy.
This is where people outside of recovery cannot relate to us in. Like when I start talking about that I'm on a different wavelength, when I'm on a different spiritual plane than other people, like where we can feel that, right? I can walk into a room immediately and because of the spiritual plane that I live on, know if I'm supposed to be in that room or know if I'm not supposed to be in that room. You know what I mean? Instantly, I can tell if this person's going to be in my life or this person's not going to be in my life. Our bullshit reader is like the best. It's the best. That's where my discernment, you know, my area of counsel, all these people have to be on the same wavelength that I'm at. It's not like a I'm better than you type of thing. It's just I'm different than you type of thing, you know? And I have to be careful who I talk to about stuff like that, you know, about anything.
What do you think changed for you to say that I'm not just going to like, because everyone has an experience where they get out of jail or they get clean and they feel grateful for a couple of weeks. Why did you get clean and it lasted more than a couple of weeks or months?
This time.
Like, what was it that kept pulling you to like a deeper commitment to not just be like, I'm grateful not to be in jail, because being grateful not to be in jail only lasts.
It does.
Until fucking.
It does. It was really like, again, me going back to taking my hands off the wheel. I saw proof in what they were talking about. I saw proof.
You let someone else drive.
Yeah. I let him drive. It wasn't anybody else dictating things in my life. And for the first time in my life, I sought counsel in not just one person, but many people, right? Like I always talk about it like a board meeting, right? Like when you're in a board meeting, right, there's shareholders and there's the president and then there's the CEO and then there's the owner, right? Like God is that CEO. So I would have some people, you know, who I knew exactly what they were going to tell me so I could get the answer out of that. But now, like, I had to seek the counsel.
Yeah, you got to clear it with everybody.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So that was like, and really the gratitude You know, really the gratitude is if you show me a grateful addict or alcoholic, you'll show me a sober addict or alcoholic. You know what I mean? And that was really what it had to be, because if I am grateful, and that's what I was, man, like I just had to remain, okay. And I saw the correlation between me being grateful and this thing working. Like I was grateful that I got to do all this because I can bitch and complain and moan.
And your mood.
Oh, man. And again, it's that when I wake up, what do I want to win? That old life, that old way of thinking, or that new life and that new way of thinking? And it's you know, literature says that we can go anywhere, do anything, be with anyone based upon my level of spiritual fitness. And I noticed the correlation. Like if I am, you know, the grass isn't green enough and the sky isn't blue enough. When's the last time I talked to God? When's the last time I prayed? When's the last time I helped somebody? When's the last time I answered the phone for a sponsee? Because they're annoying sometimes. They're annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they drag you down and make you feel guilty. And, you know.
And an important word that I've learned in recovery is no, too. No, I don't have the time, man. I can't. You know what I mean? Or no, I can't do this today necessarily. Instead of just feeling guilty. And,
if you don't do this, then whatever I've been asking you for 3 days. Oh, it took you 9 months to do as a piece of step work. And now if I don't do it in 3 days, I'm a bad sponsor.
Right.
You know, as I've gotten older, I've gotten really well with like, you're not going to give me anxiety.
Yes.
Like you're not going to get all anxious and then make me get anxious and trick me that this is a 911.
Yep.
I will schedule it.
Right.
And we will do it.
And not only schedule it, if it's that important, a sponsor's job is not to be the only person in a sponsee's life. Too many times we take this on ourselves. I need to be responsible for everything. In early recovery, it's codependent step work. Right? It's codependent recovery. I can't be your everything, dude. Did you talk to somebody else about it?
I had a sponsee who was telling me like, I can't believe one of my sponsees dropped me. Like, this kid doesn't know anything. He's a fucking idiot. And like, and I was like, dude, if you're getting mad that people are dropping you as a sponsor, you shouldn't be sponsoring them because you're too emotionally invested and you're not trying to guide them, you're trying to control them. I'm like a freaking, like I'm putting cat food outside for stray cats. I don't fucking go look for them. I like put the food outside and I close the door.
That's it.
And that's my only job.
That's it.
My only job is to fucking make sure there's a little bit of food out there.
And if the first dope man didn't pick up the phone, I was not stopping. I was calling somebody else.
Of course.
Or I was having a grappling hook tied to his front porch and going up the side of the house. You know what I mean?
I used to share this story. I was like, you know, when I was with somebody and they used, but they didn't use the way that I used. And I remember, you know, we bought like Roxy's and I had like 4. And I know exactly what 4 looks like. Like, you know, like the dollar bill, right? Like in the bottom of cellophane. I dropped one in the car. I wasn't anxious and I wasn't mad. I knew I was going to get it. I did my pills and then I was like, okay, like let's go to Walmart. And he's like, for what? And I was like, we're getting this pill. And he's like, but I got to go to work. No, dude, we're getting this pill. And he's like, well, I can't find it. You can't find it, whatever. I was like, we're taking the seats out of the car. Like
there, right? And this is just. It's not like it's a crazy thought. It's like what has to be done at the time.
Like, dude, you're taking me to Walmart. I'm gonna steal a wrench. Then we're gonna go to your job. You're gonna leave it unlocked, and I will take the seat out.
I don't even need you.
I will figure out who's gonna take you home. I'll figure it out.
Forget that part.
And guess what? I found it. You know what I mean? So it was
After
like,
I ripped out the seats.
I wasn't mad. I wasn't blaming him.
Right.
I was just like, oh, I dropped it.
Right.
I don't even want to try to move the seat because you could crush it. So you have to, it could be in the carpet. Like I can't find it. Like it's okay. We're just going to take the seats out. I'll do it with a smile on my face.
Yeah, let's go.
And then he was like, oh, we'll do it tomorrow. I was like,
No. I don't think you understand.
I kill a fly with a hammer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not leaving anything to chance.
Right.
And when I got clean, it was the same mentality. If I have like a 10% chance of relapse and doing something, like I didn't want to take the risk. It was like, dude, I'm doing everything I can, 100% to stay clean. I feel good doing like 4 meetings a week. I'll go to 6, you know?
And if I want 50% recovery, I'll do 50% of the work.
Yeah.
If I want 100% of the recovery, I have to do 100% of the work, you know? And that's, again, not always saying yes to everybody, but doing all the stuff like you said. Am I uncomfortable doing this? Because I'm comfortable in the chaos, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, give me some chaos and I'll sit there and do my time standing on my head. But does this make me uncomfortable? Is there something that's warring with my spirit on this? And that was really an early recovery because they talk about the promises, you know, that this stuff just happens. this, right? That it's just, I've been placed in a position of neutrality, right? I am no longer fighting this. It's no longer, it's just a part of my every waking moment, to be this person of integrity, to be this person who lives a life of recovery. Being mad that it made me laugh when you're talking about like, my parents didn't give me the garage code in early recovery. My parents didn't leave their purse, right? And even that stuff, the last time, because I was never invited to like family dinners, you know what I mean? I always wondered like, why can't I come to family events? The first time I was invited back to a family event, it was Thanksgiving because I got out of jail October 14th, and I was invited to Thanksgiving. My mom turns around and she's like, you know what, Ev? It's really nice that you're at a family event not asking for money or nodding out in your food, right? And to normal people, they'd be like, all right, well, that's weird, whatever. Like to me, I'll always remember her look, the way she said it, what she was wearing at the time, because it was such an important thing for me, right? And that's the way that God built that gratitude too, right? Because the gratitude is not like, it takes all this nasty, disgusting, crazy stuff to really be grateful for the small stuff.
And a lot of times in recovery, we have so much tangible proof all around us with like other people that we know. I'll never forget, there's a guy, Steve. He had 3 years clean. Bro, he shared so much good, positive stuff. He had he was just like fun, and he was just one of those guys in the rooms that you just looked up to. And I remember I was complaining about my relationship with my family. And I remember he was smoking a cigarette, and he was like, dude, I've been clean 3 years. My mom still won't talk to me. And he threw a cigarette. And I remember thinking like, dude, you're the most positive guy here. You help everybody. You've been clean 3 years. Your mom still won't talk to you? Like, I couldn't imagine someone not liking this guy.
Right.
Let alone refusing to talk to him.
Right.
Let alone your mom won't even talk to you.
Right.
It was a lot for me to be like, wow, like who I see today, it's not who they've seen for 20 probably years.
Well, that's what it is too. That's why it's when I bring the meeting into a treatment center, it's funny to see the perception of people in treatment too. Well, I have 30 days sober. You don't see this in me? No, what I see is the 30 years of you stealing from me. What I see is the 30 years of you lying to me. What I see is the 30 years of your old addictive behavior. I don't care about, I've seen you do the 30 days before.
Yeah, this guy says, if you walk 100 miles in the woods, it's going to take 100 miles to walk out.
That's right.
And it's the same thing with our families.
I just think that because I have, and that's again the selfish nature of me, right? I'm doing this thing, so you should applaud me for this thing. Instead of I'm doing this thing because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. I always talk about what does the most successful version of me look like? And every action and reaction and decision that I make has to be aligned with what does the most successful version of me look like? And it looks like me being a man of integrity and just doing the right thing when no one's watching and holding the door because it's the right thing to do and not expecting somebody to say thank you, That for me took a long time. Even like with the automatic doors, like in Publix, I would want you to say thank you for me to walk in first, you know what I mean? Or I'd go on the megaphone in the middle, like a guy on aisle 1 did not say thank you.
Exactly. And it's like, sometimes I hold the door open for someone, I can't believe they didn't say thank you. Like, it blows my fucking mind. I didn't just hold the door because I work here, and then at the end of the day, it's like,
that's why that is such a relatable thing to people like us. You know what I mean? Like it's when I heard that, I'm like, I gotta stop doing that nonsense. I don't know what's going on in that person's life. Man.
No clue.
I have no clue. And me thinking that that person is something that I didn't, like that person's an asshole because he didn't hold the door, because he didn't say thank you. Anything could be going on in that person's life. You know what I mean?
You know what was interesting is I remember I was at a meeting and this guy who, I like a lot, he's been clean a long time, was on his phone the whole time. I was just looking at him and I'm like, whatever, you're on your phone. And then he raised his hand and I was like, no, dude, you don't get to share if you've been like on your phone the whole time. He raised his hand. Then before he spoke, waited because he was still on his phone looking at something. So I was like, okay, you're going to be on your phone the whole time at the meeting. Then you're going to make us wait because you're not done sending your last text message. And he scrolled and he goes, I just want to talk about page 52 on the literature here where it says, and I was like, this guy's not on his phone. He's reading the fucking book. Yeah, the book on his fucking phone. And I remember I was like, God, I'm such a fucking idiot. Yeah. And then I started to realize, bro, I don't know if he has a sick child at home. I don't know what the fuck this person is doing. We're drug addicts, bro. We used to fucking shoot heroin and smoke crack. Now we're fucking judging each other if we're on our phone at the fucking meeting.
In a meeting.
Yeah, who cares? Who gives a fuck?
the willingness is me walking into that meeting.
Yeah.
It's not paying attention in the meeting. It's not necessarily not being on my phone.
Yeah.
The baseline willingness is me doing something that I've never done before, is me walking into that meeting and being vulnerable.
Yeah. And what does it do for me to take everyone's inventory at the fucking meeting? Why am I not listening? You know what I mean?
Because it's taken me out of my solution of what I deem is correct, right? And who am I again, right? Like, who am I? Like 9 years ago, I couldn't stop smoking crack with the upstairs neighbor. Who am I to tell you you can't be on your phone? Right? And like, I don't know. I don't know. Like that story could have ended with, I just got a text message that my mother died. What am I doing?
I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah, the other day, I remember I was running. I remember when I got to my car, someone ate a whole thing of Taco Bell and then just left it on the floor. And I remember getting to my car like, who the fuck would do that?
Right.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, I used to smoke crack in the school zone. You know what I mean? Like, I used to fucking throw crack pipes out the window because I was done with them. What the fuck is going on in my brain where I'm like been clean a couple of years and like now I'm like, who would throw out their whole Taco Bell on the floor?
Who would do that?
Who would do that, you know? And then I'm like, I remember I started laughing. I was like, I need to just reel it in. That was crazy.
Yeah, but
that's my first thought.
Of course, because my first thought is always addictive and alcoholic in nature. Always.
Negative.
Always.
I don't know if you got to call it someone died. I don't know if it fell by accident. I just think that some guy was walking, ate his Taco Bell and just threw it on the floor.
Next to my car.
Next to my car.
Right.
Yeah.
When I feel restless, irritable, discontent is because some person, place, thing, or situation is not to my liking.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not to the liking. It's not to everyone's liking. It's just to my liking. I can find fault in the stars. I can find perfection and pick it apart. You know, that's why in the program, like picking out a God of my understanding was so important, that I didn't need your God. I didn't need somebody else's God. The first meeting with my sponsor, he said, listen, why do you want me to sponsor you? And I said, well, you have this spirituality that I really like. And he said, let me stop you there. That's mine. And you can't have that. And it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing to say. But what he did is he made me responsible for my own recovery, right? He never told me anything to do, never told me I had to do anything. He led by example. I watched that example. I took other people's example. I listened to what everybody said, and I built this puzzle, right? Like with all these different pieces of what I liked. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. So I'm going to take that piece out. And I built a life based upon what these people were doing. And like I said, I watched their Rest 23. I watched what they were doing outside of the meetings. I watched about what kind of employees they were. I watched about what kind of sons, what kind of brothers, what kind of husbands, what kind of fathers they were being. And that's who I wanted to be around, you know? Like, how are you being a man of integrity? Like what all the literature says, I wanted to emulate the things that those people were doing.
When I first got clean, I remember just really judging what kind of car people drove. And I remember being like, you know, I want a sponsor who's like successful.
Yeah.
He's got his shit together.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what recovery looked like. To me, if you were years clean, you should have a nice car.
You won.
Yeah. You should have years clean. Well, yeah, if you had years clean, you're all in the same boat. Impossibility, you know? I remember like, you know, I'm going to get a guy who's, you know, got a nice car, got a hot girlfriend, all the things that I want. I didn't know that there was other things to want.
Right.
To me, it's like get someone who has what you want.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, who's got a nice car? And I remember I would like someone what they said in the meeting, and then I go see them get into like a shitty car. I'm like, no, not that guy. And it wasn't until a while where I didn't care what anybody drove. I started to look at people and be like, wow, that guy makes me feel so important.
Yeah, man.
Like, this guy makes people feel special.
Yeah, man.
Like, he listens to people. And I remember thinking like, bro, like this guy who dedicated his whole life to a 12-step program and sponsors half the room and like does all these things, like that guy's a gangster.
Yes.
Like that guy's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want to be like.
Yeah.
Like impacting people and making a difference. I started to see recovery. And before I couldn't see it. I just thought if you were clean years, you had it.
Yeah.
And I started to see that some people's presence is just so positive. And you're just like, how the fuck? And it's like, dude, every day. It's not like a couple days. Like, bro, I've been seeing this guy for years.
Yep.
And for years, he's like hugging everybody. He's got a smile on his face. You ask him, you call him anytime, he answers the phone.
Yep.
And it's like, bro, how are you just untiredly positive?
Right.
But you know what? There was years where I was untiredly negative.
Absolutely.
Always in a bad mood. Always had bullshit going on.
Yep.
always had a story to tell somebody to feel sorry for me.
Yep.
You know,
forever stories, and it's what you're talking about is legacy, right? Like, what's the legacy that I want to leave? Is the legacy some material stuff that I want to leave? You know what I mean? Because that's what I want. You know, at least in my experience, the only reason I wanted that is because that's all I could relate to. Yeah. I thought that success and living a life beyond my wildest dreams, right? I thought that was because I had to have the Maserati in the parking lot, and I had to have the huge house, and I had to have the boat, and it means none of that. Like, it means none of that. To me, the legacy stuff is like, how do my kids see me treating their mother? Because that's what's going to get passed down. That's what's going to break generational curses, man. That's what's going to break the cycle of active addiction, you know, to be like, there was love in my household, and that's all I saw, and that's what I want to emulate.
Not just that, it's like, dude, my dad says something, he did it. You know, and like sometimes to me, it's like, that's like one of the most important things to me. It's
Absolutely.
like, it's like, bro, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yep.
And if I can't or I won't, like I communicate before it's too late.
Yep.
Even just like communication. Like, dude, I hate Like, I hate having conversations that are like, I don't want to have them. Like, I'm really horrible at it.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of times, it's because I have that council board that you're, you know, the board of
trustees,
boards
right?
of trustees, that they'll be like, dude, why don't you just have a fucking conversation with this person? And it's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I'll have this whole story about why I'm mad and da-da-da-da. And they'd be like, well, did you talk to them? I'd be like, well, I'm not talking to them.
Did any of that even happen for real? You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, did any of that happen for real? Or is that something that's made up here? Right? To where I actually would talk to the person and they'd be like, what are you talking about? None of that is even true. You know what I mean? Because I will make this giant scenario in my head, like you said, to get out of talking, to get out of solving problems. Because when I'm wearing a stinky blanket, right? Whether it's resentment or whether it's fear, whether it's anger, right? Like, everybody else sees that it's stinky. Everybody else sees that it's disgusting. I feel it as comfortable. So I want to wear it and continue to wear it and continue to wear it and continue to wear it until something changes in me. Everybody else is already backed away. Everybody else doesn't want anything to do with me. But I have to change that behavior until I'm like, man, this is not working. This stinky blanket is pushing everybody away.
Hey, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I love you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Yes.
And you know what? Like, the first time I had you speak, I remember I hadn't seen you in years, but I would see on social media that you were clean. You know, swear to God, like, I remember when you came and spoke, blew me away. And it was so cool to see you because, like, I still have that image of you.
Of course.
Of Bark Detox.
In the blue scrubs.
In the blue scrubs. Like, time and time and time again, just like, because you never really had like a story or an excuse. You were just like, oh, I'm back here.
Yep.
And I remember just being like, damn, and to see you get clean.
Yeah.
So another part of recovery is that, like, I do things that reaffirm already what I believe. So, like, when I help somebody else, it reaffirms everything that I'm doing. And it's like steel. It's like, you know, you have to constantly put it into the fire to get it stronger.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hey, thank you, brother. Appreciate
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 833-999-1877 to speak to a specialist. This show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com.